Okay, we're going to continue with close reading and analyzing an argument. We just finished up looking at the background knowledge for our essay prompt in our test that we're going to be taking again in February. And the question is, how did the United States and French independence movements inspire or promote a Mexican revolution for independence? So now it's time to actually look at some of the sources that we can use for evidence. And you'll remember from our hamburger writing, we got claim, warrant, data, and ta-da. And what I'm going to do is just write that stuff down here, what we're looking for. When we're in these sources, we're looking for warrant, data to prove, or ta-da, which is the significance, why it matters. Okay. And we're going to give those concepts a color. Okay. Blue for warrant, pink for data. Autofocus here. Okay. Data. And for ta-da, we'll use the yellow here. Okay, so our first source, it says Mexican Independence Speech by Father Hidalgo de Grito de Dolores. So when I am looking at the background information, before I actually respond to my text, I'm going to look and see if there's information about Father Hidalgo or that time frame 1810, because that's when the source is from. My friends and countrymen, neither the king nor tributes exist for us any longer. We have borne this shameful tax which only suits slaves for 3 centuries as a sign of tyranny and servitude. A terrible stain which we shall know how to wash away with our efforts. The moment of freedom has arrived. The hour of liberty has struck. And if you recognize its great value, you will help me defend it from the ambitious grasp of tyrants. Only a few hours remain before you can see me at the head of men who take pride in being free. I invite you to fulfill this obligation. All right. So right here, in the first sentence, he's talking about, he kind of identifies his audience, my friends and my countrymen. So we know that he's talking to anybody who's really born in Mexico. But depending on where this speech was given and who was there to listen to it, or whether it was printed or if it was just given once in person, that is going to impact how we understand who the audience is. And we might have to live without that information if it's not in the background information, but we can assume pretty safely that he's talking about anybody who wants to join in this revolution. The king nor tributes exist any longer. All right, and so that would be a state of independence. So we might be able to use that as some data to support our answer to the question. We have borne this shameful tax which only suits slaves for 3 centuries as a sign of tyranny and servitude. So I'm going to highlight tax, slaves, tyranny, servitude. A terrible strain which we shall know how to wash away with our efforts. All right. So that one, it sounds like he's talking about we'll know how to become free by trying. I don't know. The moment of our freedom has arrived. The hour of liberty has struck. And if you recognize its great value, you will help me defend it from the ambitious grasp of tyrants. Okay, so freedom, liberty, tyrants. That happens. Tyranny and tyrants are related, so that happens twice. That's going to be an important theme. Freedom, liberty, talks about taxes, so maybe they don't want to pay taxes. But they said that taxes only suits slaves. So I don't know how you tax slaves because they're property, but maybe I'll be able to understand that as I continue to read. Only a few hours remain before you see me at the head of men who take pride in being free. I think that we're going to highlight that here as warrant. There's a reason why, because he's in the revolution, you should be in the revolution too. I invite you to fulfill this obligation. Alright, so we know that Father Hidalgo is encouraging revolution in this document. So that's document 1. Let's take a look at the next document, American Revolution. Alright, so the question in the beginning of the prompt asks us to relate the American Revolution to the Mexican Revolution. So we're looking for connections between maybe Father Hidalgo's speech and the background information to some sort of piece of evidence from the American Revolution. So this is the Declaration of Independence, pretty famous document. And again, we've got warrant, we've got data, and we've got, ta-da, why does it matter? Okay, so let's take a look at what TJ wrote. But when a long strain of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism. I have no idea what that sentence is talking about. I know abuse. So I'm just going to underline that because I'm going to have to look up those words. Who knows? Okay. It is their right, it is their duty to throw off such a government and to provide new guards for their future society. Alright, I'm going to give that the warrant statement here. To throw off such government. Oh, because this says duty. And that makes me think of how Father Hidalgo was talking about an obligation. He's inviting people to fulfill it. To provide new guards for a future society. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies. Not sure about that. And such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. Okay, to alter government. Alter their government. The history of the king present of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having direct object of the establishment of absolute tyranny. Oh, you know what? That word is in Father Hidalgo's speech over these states. To prove this, let the facts be submitted to the candid world. Oh boy, it sounds like he's lining up some evidence for us. He has refused to assent to laws the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. Alright, so Jefferson is saying that he's being tyrannical because he's not approving laws that would be good for the public. So that's data for why that revolution is starting. How can this relate to what Father Hidalgo said? That is the question. Alright, so I need to come back to that. I'm just going to put a little star here. Think about that one. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained, and when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to him. So basically saying you can't do anything with my involvement, and I'm not going to get involved, which just leaves everybody hanging. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records, for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance in his measures. Alright, so he's doing things that are inconvenient. Super inconvenient. To the point that nothing's getting done. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions of the rights of people. So he's violating people's rights, and he got rid of people who are speaking out against it. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing to assent to laws for judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount of payment of their salaries. Okay, so we're just going to say this is all potential data, but I'm not sure which bits we want to use. I mean, I could copy this whole thing into my essay, but I might just be saying nothing if I use too much. So the key is to just kind of like narrow this down to what is usable and what is relatable to Mexican independence. So I'm looking for words like freedom, tyranny, liberty, taxes. Those are the things. Okay, next page. 4. Quartering large bodies of troops amongst us. I'm not sure what quartering is, but that's something I need to look into. I'm just going to underline quartering. For protecting by mock trial from punishment any murderers which should commit on the inhabitants of these states. Okay. For cutting off trade with all parts of the world. Doesn't sound very nice. For imposing taxes without our consent. There we go. Taxes, right? That relates directly to a concept in Father Hidalgo's speech. For depriving us in many cases, trial by jury. For transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretend offenses. He has excited domestic insurrections among us and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers merciless Indian savages whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. Wow, okay, he does not like Native Americans. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in terms most humble. Our repeated petitions have only been answered by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act may be defined a tyrant. All right, so all this data here is just about King George as a tyrant, unfit for the rule of a free people, and that sounds like it might be warrant statement. Here we go. All right, so we marked that text up and thought about it. Now we've got the Declaration of Rights of Man and the Citizen. Men are born free, retain and have equal rights. Social distinctions may be founded only upon the general good. Okay. I don't see anything about taxes there. This might be a little bit about freedom. Number 2, the aim of all political association is the perseverance of natural and imprescriptible rights of man. These rights are liberty, property, security, and resistance to oppression. All right, that sounds like freedom. So I'm going to give that a data option here. We might be able to use that as data to support the idea that this revolution influenced the Mexican Revolution for Independence. 6 is the expression of the expression of the general will. I wonder what that means exactly. Every citizen has the right to participate personally or through his representative in its foundation. It must be the same for all, whether it protects or punishes. All citizens, being equal in the eyes of the law, are equally eligible for all the dignities and all the public positions and occupations according to their abilities, and without distinction except for that virtues of their talent. Again, that all sounds like freedom to me. Freedom to participate in the government. No one shall be disquieted on account of his opinions, including his religious views, provided their manifestation does not disturb the public order established by law. So that sounds like religious freedom. The security of the rights of man and the citizen require public military forces. These forces are therefore established for the good of all and not for the personal advantage of those to whom they shall be trusted. All right, so this is talking about the army. Not sure if we can use that for evidence or even warrant. All the citizens have a right to decide either personally or by representative as to the necessity of public contribution. To grant this freely, to know what it uses, is to put and to fix the proportion, the mode of assessment and collection and duration. Oh, taxes! All right. Now, this is a very wordy section here, so we need to know what is the author saying about taxes. That's what we need to know from that. Society has the right to require every public agent to an account of his administration. What's it mean? Since property is an inviolable and sacred right, no one shall be deprived thereof, except where the public necessity legally determined shall clearly demand. Okay. So freedom to own property. So there's a political cartoon or two that we will examine in the next phase of this exercise. But we have examined 3 articles, thought about them, taken notes, highlighted terms that were relevant to both the prompt and also to our evidence about what motivated the Mexican Revolution for Independence.